Welcome back again, guys, with another video. I want to ask you guys a question. Does it seem as if the Dion Coach Prime hype train is kind of slowing down a little bit? Does it seem like it's the luster that it received in the beginning, all of the attention that it got? Does it seem as if it's dying down a little bit? Well, if you ask me, I think that it is, and I know that it is. And it's not so much predicated on wins and losses. They're not even competitive. I was reading one of my comments. Somebody told me that I don't know what I'm talking about, that their offense is not the problem, that they put up 30-something points a game. Yeah, that 30-something points a game, I don't think that's accurate. I'll have to do my research and look that up. But if they are putting up 30-something points a game, the statistic is misleading, because many of those points are being scored during garbage time. A lot of the times they're not even in games. They're always trailing. Usually at halftime, they're usually close within striking distance. But when the second half begins, the opposing team pulls away. And when the opposing team pulls away, Colorado becomes one-dimensional. They are already one-dimensional, but they really become one-dimensional because they can't afford to run the ball, because time is not on their side. When you are down in the game, especially when you're down multiple scores, multiple touchdowns, it's hard to commit to the run. And Colorado doesn't commit to the run anyway. Even when the games begin, they don't commit to the run. So how much more do you think they're going to commit to the run when they are not in the game? They're looking for quick strikes, and they're looking for those large gains and explosive plays. So usually toward the end of the game, when the other team is just out of it's just a natural human response. When you're up on a team, you tend to kind of let your guards down, and sometimes these teams are putting in their backups toward the end. And then, Shedeur may score a couple of touchdowns toward the end, giving the Colorado faithful and the Colorado fans something to hope for, but usually they fall short, as we've seen on this losing streak. So the magneticism that started with Prime is dying down. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have supporters, but I think that reality is starting to set in. How Coach Prime began this journey is what caught everybody's attention. You go to a university, you clear house. Now, I don't believe that he told those players, I don't believe he kicked those players off, but he influenced them to leave. Let's say that. And I believe that that's not a negative thing. If you are an athlete and you believe in your ability, see, Prime needs people. He needs athletes that believe in themselves. He needs athletes that have a certain mindset. If you don't believe in your abilities and you're getting threatened by a coach coming in saying that he's bringing in his quote-unquote Louis luggage and that many of you guys are not going to be here, if you are a true competitor and you believe in your talents and your skills and your gifts, and you don't give up, and you're self-determined, you would stay to prove that coach wrong. That, no, I'm going to make this team. I'm going to work harder than your Louis luggage people that you're bringing in. So a lot of those players that left, they didn't have the mindset that Coach Prime wanted. And I will go as far as to say that Coach Prime used that speech that day as a ploy, as a mechanism to see who would stay and who would go. Now, out of the players that were there, I believe only two stayed. If I'm two that actually impact the game. I believe Woods, who started the year off at safety, is now converted as a linebacker, and I believe Harrison, I think that's his name, the tight end. Those are the two players that were with the Colorado team before Coach Prime got there, and they stayed. Those are the type of players you want. The players that are not going to get intimidated by anybody. And that can speak to why Colorado last football season were 1-11, the kind of mindset of the players. I mean, what kind of players? I mean, if you really believe in your skills and your abilities, and this coach is bringing in players, you got to be bullheaded. You got to bet on yourself. And if you're not willing to bet on yourself, who will? Are you relying on somebody else to believe in you versus you believing in yourself? I'd rather you believe in yourself and fail than you tuck your tail and run. And most of those players left. And the narrative that went out was that Coach Prime kicked off players and told them to leave. He didn't tell them to leave. They left. Yes, did he kind of scare them off? I agree he did. But he didn't put a gun to their head and say leave. They could have stayed if they wanted to. They could have tried out and beat out his Louis luggage people that he was bringing. If you believed in yourself, they left. So, Coach Prime got a lot of heat for that. A lot of the old heads, the traditional heads, they were like, that's not the way you do it. You got to come to a program and you got to build with what you have and build traditionally. No, Coach Prime is not trying to build anything traditional. He's going to do it his way. And I don't have a problem with the way he did it or the way he was going about it. The only problem I have with Coach Prime, because at the beginning, people who don't know football, who aren't really into the X's and O's and into the philosophy of football, especially the ones who are not true fans of college football, who just started to kind of watch college football due to Coach Prime's emergence at Colorado, those people don't understand why the hype train is dying down. The simple term that simpletons often use is hater. I've always said on this channel, if you're going to call somebody a hater, please have a justifiable reason to say that they're hating, or you can simply just pinpoint the comments that they make or pinpoint their position, and then you can contend against their position. You can go against their position, detail by detail, rather than painting a broad brush and calling people haters. That's elementary, folks. We have to be bigger than that. We have to use our brains and actually say, I do not agree with you, this is why. Or I don't think that you're coming from a right place, this is why. This is how we grow. We have to have different opinions and different perspectives. You cannot call somebody a hater because they have a different perspective than you. So you can't call me a hater. How can I even hate Prime? I don't even know him. I know him just from what I see on television. I'm not his son. He's not my relative. He's not my uncle. I just know him from what I see, just like you guys. But just because I know him from what I see, I can love him and still critique him. I can like him and still critique him. I can like him and still question some of his calls and some of the judgments and some of the ways that he does things. So I'm very objective. I'm not going to turn a blind eye and violate my conscience to appease the masses of people that are just flocking to his cause. No. That's what's wrong with society now. We move with emotion rather than controlling our emotions. We allow our emotions to lead us. And we should probably speak anyway. I'm not gonna get off on a tangent. I digress. But let me get back to Coach Prime. So the way he started was critical. And like many of you guys, I believe that, hey, this guy's gonna come in, and I believe that he could win a lot of games. I wasn't one of the people that said that, maybe he'll win a couple of games more. Like the record they have now, I didn't foresee them having that record, especially after the TCU game. When I saw the kind of team he had, very explosive, fast-paced. I loved what I saw against the TCU team. However, ever since that 3-game winning streak, even the third game that they won was tough. And I think teams started to get a hold of what they do. They have tape on them. Remember, these are all new players, a new coach, new system, new everything. So it's going to take time for the college world to study the tendencies of Colorado on the offensive side of the ball and to understand their defensive schemes. And I think that once colleges and universities start to understand and have more film tape to actually analyze what Colorado does from a football perspective in terms of their philosophy on offense and defense, and I think Colorado became more predictable. They did. And when you become predictable, you become easy to defend and you become easy to attack. And I this is the part that I don't like about Prime, is his ability to pivot. The season is already washed. I've already said this on numerous videos before that I believe that they're going to lose out. It doesn't mean I'm a hater. It doesn't mean I don't believe. And this belief thing that started was I've never been into that. Oh, you got to believe. You can believe all the hell you want. But there comes a time where practicality comes into play. What are you doing to make that belief become a reality? If you're, it's sort of like a person who has an exam. You have a test to take. And then you just keep telling yourself, I believe I'm going to pass, but you don't study. The pragmatical part of you believing that you're going to pass, you're not putting in the legwork to make that belief come to fruition, then you're an idiot. So when people kept talking about believe, I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, we believe, Prime, that you can win, but there's certain things that need to change. Those teams that they've lost to are teams they could have beat. You can't tell me that those teams that beat them are better. Now, with the exception of probably Oregon and USC, are probably the only two teams. Okay, probably UCLA. But even in the USC game, they almost won. But there's some teams that outmatch them talent-wise, especially on the D-line and O-line. I understand that, and I understand that that's the part that needs to be beefed up for Colorado. But outside of that, and I understand that people say, well, that's where everything starts. Yes, but in watching the game, I've never saw the offensive line being as atrocious as you guys think that they are. I've seen worse. He gets protection to a degree. Does he oftentimes, when I say he, I'm referring to Shedeur. Does Shedeur oftentimes hold the ball a little bit too long? Yeah. Could it be that the receivers are not open? Yeah, it could be. There are many reasons. The UCLA game was the only game to me that truly exposed the offensive line. But yeah, they're playing against 3 defensive linemen that are NFL prospects. And nobody on the offensive line for Colorado is an NFL prospect. Okay, we understand that the weak point of the team is the offensive line. However, just because it's your weak point does not mean it's as weak as you are making them be. Every team has a weak point. No team is perfect. Now, there are perfect teams. Those, especially, I look at like a Georgia. Their D-line, O-line, their defense, offense, they're probably the nearest team to perfection. But anybody who studies a team, they usually have a weak point. Maybe it's their special teams. Maybe it's their receiving core. Maybe it's their DBs. You can always find something to nitpick at to say this is their weak point. And I think that's what Colorado has done. No one questions Shedeur's decision-making, because how could you, right? He's not getting protected. He needs to be given 20 seconds to throw the ball. And if he's not given 20 seconds to throw the ball and he gets sacked, it's the offensive line's fault. No one looks at Coach Prime as a weak point. The easy scapegoat is the offensive line. The easy scapegoat is Coach Sean Lewis, the offensive coordinator, or the ex-offensive coordinator. It's always somebody else but Coach Prime. The last game that they just played was telling, because they still didn't commit to the run. And I read a couple of comments on my page. People were saying that, how can they run? The offensive line doesn't open up holes. And I'm like, what? There are different type of run schemes that you can implement on your team, especially with the kind of running backs you have. If you're just running the ball between the tackles and just to say, hey, we ran the ball, then that's disingenuous. Just like when Shedeur and Coach Prime and the offensive coordinators, when they're having their meetings before games, during practice or before practice, they're trying to devise the best offensive schemes in terms of passing that's going to allow people like Travis Hunter and Xavier Weaver and Horn Jr. to get open. They're not calling basic pass plays. They're calling out the most exotic passing schemes that they can in order to get those guys open. Why? Because they are committed to the air raid. They are committed to passing. You understand what I'm saying? So with that being said, if you're going to put that much effort into the passing aspect of your offense, I believe that you can put that same energy into the run, but they don't. They run basic run plays. They're not creative at all. You have good running backs. And as I've said again, look at my previous videos. There's a difference between pass blocking and run blocking. Maybe the offensive line are not great pass blockers, but I believe that they're better run blockers than they are pass blockers. Because mind you, remember, Sean Lewis was a running coach. He ran the ball 48% of the time at Kent State. So he believes in a balanced offense. As a matter of fact, he brought some of his linemen. Some of his linemen left Kent State to come play for Colorado. So they're better run blockers. But Coach Prime, I say Coach Prime because he's the head coach. I don't think he's just sitting there and letting the offensive coordinators and the other assistant coaches do what the hell they want. At the end of the day, the buck stops with the head coach. He makes the executive decision of how he wants the team to be ran, especially on the offensive side of the ball, because his son is at the helm. His son is the quarterback. So he's going to have a large amount of influence over that. So you guys that keep on giving Coach Prime an excuse of saying is blaming on his offensive coordinator, no, you have to blame it on the head coach. You're trying to say that Nick Saban doesn't have a say-so in what goes on the offensive side of the ball, even though Nick Saban is a defensive guy? Do you think the quarterback that they have now at, I think his name is Melrose, I believe, the Alabama quarterback, remember they struggled with passing the ball? That's what they try to develop the quarterback as a quarterback who can throw and run. But what did Coach Saban do? He's not an offensive coordinator, but he let his offensive coordinators know, hey, we're not doing any passing, man. We're going to do a lot of RPOs. The ball's going to be in Melrose's hands because that's the best chance we have at winning. We're not going to be flinging the ball all over the damn place. That's a coach that makes adjustments based upon what he sees. The difference between Saban and Prime, even though they do have a lot of similarities, I believe that they're both old school. They're both disciplinarians. They both believe in having hard practices. They're both no-nonsense guys, but the difference is that one thing I give Nick Saban a lot of credit for is his ability to pivot. Even earlier in his career, when he was big on the run, big on running the ball and playing defense, he did end up recruiting quarterbacks that could fling the ball because he understood that the SEC was turning into a league where you had to pass. He couldn't just rely on defense and running. He had to get quarterbacks who could fling the ball around a bit. So Nick Saban is able to switch and pivot. And he's able to switch and pivot because he doesn't have his son as a quarterback. These are just men that he's recruited. Does he care about them? Yes, of course. But he doesn't have that emotional connection tied to these kids as if the quarterback or the running back or the receiver or anybody on the team is his son. Whereas in Deion's case, I believe that him having his son at the quarterback has clouded his judgment. And he is not able, right now, he's capable of doing it. I know he is. He's a smart man. But right now, he just can't seem to make the switch and pivot and say, you know what, guys, I know my son Shador is the quarterback, but we need to run the ball more. We need to predicate our offense off the run and pass off the run. Try something different. You cannot continue to do the same thing expecting different results. And then you think that you can out-motivate your opponent, meaning that you can motivate your student athletes to a degree that they're going to outplay your opponent. It doesn't work that way. Maybe in Pee Wee football you can do that, motivate a bunch of little kiddos. But when you get to a level like the Power 5 conferences, and especially like an NFL, you can give the best rah-rah speech. You can give the best motivational speech ever known to man. But if your philosophy is not putting your team in the best place, in the best position to win, if it's not conducive to actually yielding results to win, then your motivational speech is moot. It's irrelevant. It's null and void because you've just motivated your team to go out there with a scheme and an offensive philosophy that's not going to put them in the best position to win, and it's not going to protect your son. The reason why Shador keeps getting hit is because the team is predictable, like I've said millions of times in the videos. So right now, there's about 3 more games left of the football season, and I think right now they should just say, you know what, F it. Let's see what the run can do. They should just predicate their offense on the run. And I'm not just saying just to run to say you ran. Run the ball so much and it forces the team, it forces the opponent. Because I don't believe that the teams that they're about to play, the next 3 teams, I don't believe those teams are going to be able to stop Hankerson and Wilkerson and even Dylan Edwards. I don't think they can just stop them, shut them down cold. You say, well, you can't just run the ball all day because then you become predictable. That's fine. If they start to predict and think that you're going to run the ball, then you do play action. You beat them over the top. It's kind of like how, if you look at how Detroit Lions are, you see the quarterback, Goff. He's a great play action quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's a pocket guy, just like Shador. Pocket quarterbacks need to play action. Pocket quarterbacks need to have the defense, the opposing side of the ball, be off balance. Because you don't want them to tee off on you and pin their airbacks and say, oh, I know he's going to pass every time. That makes your passing game much harder to orchestrate. And even with that said, Shador's still putting up decent numbers. That's what defense is predicting that they're going to pass, and they are passing. So imagine if Colorado was more balanced. So I believe that these next 3 games, they should just say to hell with it. Let's just run the ball as much as we can. And then, maybe run the ball some on first down. Stop doing pass plays on first down. Mix it up. I'm not an offensive coordinator, but I understand that you have to bring in minds that can devise complex running schemes. Just as much as you guys are focused on the offensive side of the ball with the pass plays, I believe you guys could put the same amount of attention on the run plays. But you guys are not doing that because you guys don't believe in the run. And then you run the ball half-heartedly to then say, see, we ran, it didn't work. Well, the passing isn't working either, Prime. But you guys don't stop passing, though. You'll continue passing even if you see that it's not working. First, second, third down, all of a sudden punt. Your offensive time of possession is weak, and you continue to put your defense back on the field with limited rest. And then people say the defense is horrible. Yeah, I'm not saying the defense is strong, but the offense is just as bad as well. A bad offense could actually affect your defense. A good offense could also affect your defense in a positive light. So when Coach Prime started, he started with this Louis Vuitton talk. He galvanized his troops. He bought his Louis luggage. And we're not seeing Louis luggage we're seeing Louis luggage in terms of talent, but we're not seeing Louis luggage in terms of football principle and football concepts and football philosophy and football X's and O's. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing that at all. It has to match, Prime. Your football approach has to be Louis. Just as much as your players are Louis, you have to have a Louis mindset, not a Louis motivator. We're talking about schemes and X's and O's and thinking, adding the psychological element of football. You are too predictable. I'm not the only one saying that. There are many other sports. I'm not even a sports expert. I don't deem myself anything. I don't know. I know a little bit about sports, but I'm not going to say a little bit. I know more than the average person. But the point I'm making is that I'm not considered an expert. And people who watch it, they know the same thing that I know. They say the same thing that I'm saying. But hey, let's see what these next three games are going to be like. I've predicted that they're going to lose out. Hopefully I'm wrong. And I'm just tired of seeing them do the same thing game in and game out. And then right now they are ranked 63rd in ranking in terms of the recruitment. And some believe that after the football season, when recruiting season officially begins, they're hoping that ranking goes up from 63, gets cut down. What people ideally want is for Coach Prime to be in the top 10 of recruiting, but I believe that people are starting to get the wind of what's going on at Colorado, and people are pulling back. More players are going to decommit. AJ Hill, I believe that the quarterback that's decided to come there, not next year, but I think the year after that, I believe. He didn't make a commitment. I don't know if he's going to decommit or not. I don't know if he made an official commitment or not. But there's a lot of things there's a lot of questions in the air. And it's all due to the way Coach Prime has managed his team and ran the team. Because if you're heavily predicating your offense on the pass, and because because your son is there, then what are you going to do when your son leaves? Are you all of a sudden going to become balanced? And what happens when you get those offensive dogs, those offensive linemen? Are you going to get the best offensive linemen? And if you do have a good offensive line in terms of recruiting, and you got good ones, most of them are going to be freshmen, and freshmen always make their mistakes. They they're required to have a learning curve because it's their first time playing in the Power 5 conference. They just left high school. They just left their prom. If you get some that transfer through the portal, how good are they going to be? So the pressure is going to be on Prime because now he's not going to be able to have the excuse of my offensive line. He already threw his offensive lineman under the bus by saying he needs to replace them. That's exactly what he said on national. This is something I see if you want to chew them out in private. But, you know, Coach Prime has to defend his ego. He doesn't want anybody to question his football acumen. I question it. I question it every time. The decision making he makes, going forward deep down in your territory with 3 consecutive pass plays, only to punt the ball to the other team for them to score when they played against Oregon. Not Oregon, but Oregon State. That was horrible. That's on Prime. You guys wanted to put it on the offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator wasn't even there. He replaced the offensive coordinator. He demoted him. That wasn't Pat Schumer's call. You think Pat Schumer's going to make that type of decision, and he's just not he's been given the mantle to run the offense? You think he's going to do that on his first time out? You guys have to think. It was Coach Prime's decision. And he actually said it. He said, put that on me. And that's not him saying it to defend anybody. He's saying it, no, it was on me. But he tried to quickly sweep it under the rug by saying, well, we had a couple of drops. Well, that's why you don't pass. Because you have to look at the risk and the reward factor. Yeah, if you pass, they catch it, great. But if you pass and they don't catch it, the risk is much higher than the reward. So you play it safe. You're down 7-3. It's a 4-point game. Run the ball, kill the clock, go to halftime, live to fight another day. But instead, you give up a touchdown. Now it's 14-3. Changes the whole dynamic of the game. But yet, you go in the locker room and chew your team out. You should chew yourself out, Coach Prime. So yeah, we'll see next year. The pressure's going to be on because next year, people are going to want to see a better product. But I think that this year they could have been good. They could have been better than their record. Way better than their record indicates. And just the way that all the four running backs that they had. Remember on Well Off Media before the season even began, everyone was talking about how they have all these great running backs. Cavassier Smoke, Alton McCaskill, Hankerson, Dylan Edwards. I mean, I would argue and say they had, in the Pac-12, I would argue and say they had the best running tandem by committee in the country. Or in the definitely in the Pac-12. To me personally. Because they had different styles of running backs. It wasn't just speedy guys. They had power guys, speedy guys, guys who could catch out of the backfield. Coach Prime didn't use any of them. He just focused on his son. And that's what crippled the team. That's what's making me believe that he's not going to be there after Shedeur leaves. Now, he's saying that he's going to be there for the long haul. I don't know. He may stay there, but I think he's going to leave definitely after 5 years. Or maybe 4. Because I don't think that, even if his son gets drafted, I don't see his son just starting for an NFL team immediately. He's still rough around the edges. He's a good quarterback, but there's still some things that he can work on. It's rare that you just step in and become a starter, but we'll see. Anything can happen. But Coach Prime wants to continue to coach his son. He's been coaching him since he was in Little Leagues. In Pee Wee football. They've been following him. So I don't think it's going to change. I don't think he's being genuine. We'll see. And that A&M job crap that they're talking about, that's just a distraction. He's not going to A&M. He just got to Colorado. He's not leaving. Not yet. Not yet. We'll see, man. But next year, the excuses are going to have to go down. And how I feel now, I believe that a lot of you guys that are on the hype train of Coach Prime, I believe that you guys next year may start to think like I'm thinking now, if he doesn't make a change. If he continues to do this, because what's the excuse going to be next year? If he improves his offensive line, then people are going to say, well, it's only year 2. Well, if it's only year 2, I expect to see improvements from year 1 to year 2. And again, I'm not predicating improvements on wins and losses. It's how you play. Are you able to make changes? Are you able to make different personnel decisions that affects your team? Are you just simply motivating, or are you actually putting in things to actually match the motivation that you're spewing forth towards your team? Are you humble enough to accept that, hey, let me take what my coaches are telling me and actually apply it? Or is everyone that's underneath Prime on the team afraid to speak to him? And I think that's what's going on. I think people are afraid to confront Coach Prime with his philosophies. Even the reporters do it. When they're asking him questions, Coach Prime just cuts them off. And no one says, hey, I'm not done with my question. Can you wait till I finish? You know, he does that a lot. He'll cut them off, and then he likes to take control of the narrative. He doesn't want, especially when you're asking a smart question, he'll cut you off. He does it in a way where it seems as if he's enthusiastic. If he's showing that he's enthused to answer the question. So he's like, oh, I gotta answer the question. I'm ready to answer the question. No, you're ready to answer the question because you don't want the reporter to finish the question to put you on the spot. Coach Prime does not like to be put on the spot. He's very general, but he doesn't have a problem with throwing his players under the bus. He does not. I do not like the way he handled his offensive linemen. And if I was his offensive lineman, most of them, I would just leave. I would go to another school. And let's see what happens next year, because I'm eager to see what the excuses are going to be if they're not playing well. But they should play well, right? They're supposed to be getting these recruits out of high school, right? Let's see if that fixes it. Talent alone is not going to fix your team, Coach Prime. You have to get out of your own way. You have to get out of your own ego, get out of your own pride, and construct your team based upon the personnel you have. Now, if you're gonna just recruit a bunch of fast wideouts who are talented out of high school, that's great. If you're gonna recruit a bunch of offensive linemen that can block for your son, that's great. You also have the defensive side of the ball too, Coach Prime, that you have to worry about. As a matter of fact, if you really want to be a dominant team, the dominant teams in your division right now in the Pac-12 are teams that are balanced, that can run the ball. Look at Oregon, you could look at UCLA. Look at Oregon and look at UCLA. They run the ball and they're effective with it. So yes, I'm not telling you guys to be a ground and pound team, but you have to be able to commit to the run. If you just think I'm going to recruit a bunch of wide receivers and a bunch of offensive linemen to protect my son, then Coach Prime, you're playing a video game. This is not video game, create my team, create my player kind of thing. This is real life here. Like, this is real football. Okay? This is not a video game. And I think oftentimes Prime is treating his coaching philosophy as a video game. Let's see what happens this next game, in these next 3 games. Hopefully they win out, but I doubt it, because they're continuing to do the same thing over and over again. And since the Heisman hopes, or even in the Heisman talks, are done for Shedeur, I don't see why he continues to try to pad the stats of his son. It's over. Maybe he's trying to do it. Maybe he wants his son to kind of, play 3 consecutive great games, which will lead to next year for him to be in the talks for the Heisman. I don't know. But right now, that ship has sailed a long time ago. Let's move on. Okay, let's move on. I feel sorry for Kavasier Smoke. Alton McCaskill, you wasted the season. You worked hard to come back off of your knee injury, only to sit there in Colorado and not play when you were promised that you would play. Promised that you would play if you worked hard, and I believe he did work hard. He didn't get a chance to showcase his talent. Dylan Edwards, again, it's favoritism. Remember, Coach Prime coached Dylan Edwards when he was in Pee Wee football. He's known Dylan Edwards since he was a little boy. He knows some of these guys' parents, so it's who he knows. He puts his affection towards certain players first, rather than putting players that are going to help him win. He wants these certain kids to showcase their talent so they can quote-unquote feed their families and take their mom out the quote-unquote hood. So he's trying to save these kids and their families, but you can't do that when you're coaching a team. You have to put the best players in the game that are going to give you the best chance to win. Shedeur throwing the ball 45, 50 plus times a game is not going to help you win. Shedeur in shotgun every play is not going to help you win. I know he's your son and you want him to do well. Running Dylan Edwards down the middle is not going to help you win. He's too thin. He's too tiny. Alton McCaskill should have been your bell cow back. Occasionally, you should just like remember Lindell White and what's the other running back with USC? It was Lindell White and I can't remember his name right now. But you guys know who I'm talking about. He was the USC running back then. Lindell White and I forgot his name, but you know who I'm talking about. It was like thunder and lightning, and they used both of them. Even though Dylan Edwards is slight of build, he would be like the lightning, and then the Lindell White would be the Alton McCaskill. They threw the ball too at USC back then, but they also attacked you with the run. And I think that's what Coach Prime is missing on this team. That's the only aspect of the offense that has not been utilized, and they have not made a concentrated effort to commit to that aspect of their game. And yet, fingers are being pointed at everybody, and everybody is blaming this and blaming that, and no one's looking at the offensive schemes of of how Colorado plays. You know, the demotion of Sean Lewis was, again, I don't believe it was a demotion. I believe Coach Sean Lewis wanted out, and it wasn't because he was interviewing for other jobs. He wanted out because he just couldn't do it anymore. It's hard to coach underneath a man that's so egotistical and prideful and unwilling to change. Even against empirical evidence, he sees it on the field. He sees exactly what's happening, that he's too predictable, yet he wants this ball in his son's hands. Yeah, I believe he was being yelled at. That anonymous source is anonymous for a reason. Yes, the offensive coordinator was being yelled at, Sean Lewis, by Coach Prime. Yeah, he wants the ball in his son's hands by all costs. You know how I know? Because even when the game was out of reach, I forgot what game that was. I think it was the game when they played against. Was it when they played against UCLA? Or was it when they played against? I don't know what team it was, but remember, it was like 6 minutes left. The score was 29-6, I believe. The game was out of reach. Son's limping. Son could barely walk back to the huddle, having to get pain injections at halftime. Game is out of reach, right? Fourth quarter. Yeah, Coach Prime leaves his son in the game. For what? That lets me know the passion for his son is so imbalanced, or the passion that he has for himself, because it's all about Prime and his name, Sanders, that it clouds logic. Just pull your son out. It's okay to wave the white flag. When it's over, it's over. Why risk further injury? Why risk further pain on your son? So I know how to put two and two together. If you're willing to put your son in when the game is out of reach and he's clearly hurt or clearly in pain, even after getting painkiller injections, and you're still willing to leave him in, then what are you going to do to an offensive coordinator that dares to remove the ball from his hands and have Shador hand the ball off to a running back? Yeah, you're going to eat him alive. You're going to chew him out. Coach Lewis had to leave. He demoted himself. Coach Prime didn't demote anybody because nothing changed when they got Pat Schumer in there. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. Oh, I know why nothing changed. According to some of you guys, it's because the offensive line is so bad, so they have to keep passing. Well, that's not working. You're still losing games. How about do something different? How about this? Colorado, commit to the run for the last 3 games of the season, and then we can have an honest discussion if you guys need to be balanced or not. But until you actually incorporate balance in your offensive schemes, we have nothing to talk about. You can't continue to do pass all the damn time, and then run the ball only 11 times, and the rest of the plays that you have are just pass plays. That's ridiculous. And the runs that Shador has are not designed run plays. You know that, guys. He's not running the ball by design, especially toward the second half of the football season. He's been taking a beating. The last thing they want is for him to have designed runs. He's not doing like really RPOs, and if he does do an RPO, he is not running the ball. He does not want to get hit. He's sliding down before he gets hit. He actually starts to just fall before they hit him, and I don't blame him. You don't have to try to be Superman here and get your head knocked off. So yeah, let's commit to the run for the last 3 games, and let's see, so we can have an honest discussion, so we can have a good sample size to say, hey, these are how the games went when they committed to the run, the last 3 games of the season. They won those games, or they were closer. They were more competitive. They looked better. They looked more balanced. Actually, Shador's statistics look better because now they committed to the run, and now the defense didn't know what to expect. Let's try something different so we can have a comparative analysis to see how the season went the first half. Not even the first half. I'll say the first 3 quarters of the season, because the first 3 quarters of the season, we're at the last half. We're at the last quarter of the season. So the last quarter of the season, last 3 games, Just utilize that as a way to just run the ball more. So we can take that smaller sample size and then compare it to the bigger sample size of 3/4 of the season and say, hey, man, the last quarter of the season didn't look too bad. But the first 3/4 of the season did look bad because they were passing too much. Now we can come together and make, determinations based upon the two data points. But hey, they won't do that. I hope they do that, but they won't do that. Promise too, it can't be humble. But I think he will. Once he loses out this year, maybe when he comes back next year and he starts to see the health of his son, he's going to realize that big boy football is different from HBCU. Your son's going to get destroyed. If you guys come back next season, Coach Prime, mark my words, and hopefully if somebody's listening to this, send this to him. If you know Coach Prime personally, or if you know him, I hope send this video to their page. Send this video to somebody on the football team so he can get it. I'm a nobody. I'm not a hater. This is just me talking common sense to anybody who's a Colorado faithful, anybody who's a Colorado football fan. This is what I'm going to tell you right now. If you come back next season and you decide to continue to do pass, and your son continues to get hit, then, because after what you saw this season, that should be an eye-opener to you, that Coach Prime, that your son cannot sustain those blows for another season. That's officially coach malpractice 101. That's borderline insane, moronic, at best. At best, it's moronic. If you go into the next season applying the same offensive philosophy of I have better linemen, we're gonna keep passing. I'm not gonna put anybody down to protect, no extra backs. I'm not gonna put in an extra tight end to chip block or anything like that. I'm gonna just pass. Then you are gonna be the sole reason, the sole factor of why your son did not make it to the NFL. And if he does make it to the NFL, he's gonna come in there crippled and beat down. You ever heard of the term seeing ghosts? Ask Carr. Remember Carr, the Houston Texans draft pick? I get one's David Carr, one's Derek Carr. They're their brothers. I'm not talking about the Carr that's in the NFL now. I'm talking about his older brother that was drafted way before his younger brother. Even when he started to get protection, he's just looking around thinking I'm about to get hit. He can't even look downfield. I don't care how talented a quarterback is. Once they get abused so much and get hit so much, they no longer become that confident quarterback that can stand in the pocket and deliver the ball with precision and confidence. You know why? Because they're human. The psyche, the neuronal response takes over. It's called neuronal. It's a neurological response. It's nerves. It's impulsive. It's flight or fight. It's not you making the decision to be scared. It's just your neurons kick in as a defense mechanism to say, hey man, you better get down because you don't want to get hit again. Because psychologically, he doesn't want to keep getting hit. So Coach Prime, if you start next season the same way, pass, and your son's going to continue to get hit. Because even if you have a better offensive line, Coach Prime, I want you to think about this. Even if you improve your offensive line, if you become predictable, even with the better offensive line, the D line is still going to be able to get to your son because you're predictable. They don't have gap responsibility. They don't have to worry about the run gaps. They're going to just pin their airbacks and just rush. You're all about the big splash plays, Prime. I get it. You want to bomb the ball down the field, pad your son's stats, get Travis Hunter looks from the NFL being a two-way player. We get it. That's what I mean by personal agendas becoming more significant and getting put at the highest state of what's important in terms of priority over the team concept. If it's about winning, you're going to do the best thing to win. And part of doing that is you compromising some of your bigger ideals. You can't come in your first couple of years and think that you're going to just do it the way you want and it's going to work. You're going to do it by force. And then if it doesn't work, blame your offensive linemen and say, I'm going to replace them all. Like, really? Replace them? Okay, replace them. Let's see what you're going to do next year. You cannot do the same thing, Prime. Don't start next season doing the same crap. Hopefully, after your son gets beat the hell up this season, because I think he will. In my heart of hearts, I believe that in the last 3 games, they're going to do the same thing. They're not going to run. I want them to. Hopefully they do. But I don't believe that he will. So go ahead and just keep passing and keep getting your son hit. Because even though he didn't get hit as much as he did against UCLA Bruins, he still got hit a lot last game. He still was hurt and pressured. Okay? So if you don't get it now to run, you're not going to get it next year either, Prime. So we'll see how it goes next year. I wish you well. I hope you do well. I don't believe that you will if you continue on the same trajectory of thinking that you're going to be pass heavy and not reap the consequences of that. Especially when you have good running backs. That's the part that is baffling. It's not like you don't have running backs. You have them. Well, you probably won't have them next year. Because I don't believe great running backs are leaving their campuses in high school to come there. So there's going to be an imbalance. This is what's going to happen, folks. And I'm going to say this before I end the video. Because the weaknesses of the team, everyone keeps saying it's the offensive line. So they're going to get a bunch of offensive linemen to come. A nice amount of receivers to come, even though they already have good receivers. But you can end up having too much talent. There's only one ball. So let's say they improve the offensive line. Alton McCaskill is gone. To me, he was their best running back. Yeah, you guys wouldn't know. You guys are gonna say Dillon because he was in the game more. He was their best running back. Based upon the film that I saw of him in U of H, his running style reminds me of Adrian Peterson. How do you not use him? You have to be retarded. You have to be on crack. You have to be on meth. You have to be delusional not to use that guy. He redshirts. He said, I'm done. Cavassier Smoke was considered at Kentucky an NFL graded running back. He was an NFL prospect. He didn't run the ball. You just put him on special teams. Hankerson is a good running back. Wilkerson, all those guys are good. Didn't use them. So no running back in high school is going to look at Colorado and say, I want to go there. So what Prime's going to have is going to have the same issues. He's going to have a bunch of wideouts that are talented on the outside, a bunch of speed guys, and he's going to improve his offensive line incrementally, because I don't think that you're going to go from being weak at the offensive line to all of a sudden being super strong. It doesn't happen that way. You have to build that up slowly. That's why people says it takes 3 to 4 years to build up. But Coach Prime is impatient. He wants to see wins now. But he doesn't know the significance of running the ball and slowing things down and seeing the game from a chess perspective versus seeing it as checkers. It's a thinking game. Anyway. So the point I'm making here is that he's going to have the same problem next year, because as long as you don't have a strong... Dylan Edwards is not going to all of a sudden gain 50 pounds and become just bigger, thicker. But he is what he is. He's a fast guy. He's very twitchy, okay? Very fast. And that's what he is. You can't continue to run him between the tackles. He's more, put him in the slot or something. Put him out on the outside. So we may end up seeing the same problems next year, folks, because he's not recruiting like he's looking to improve the running game. He's recruiting to improve the passing game. So what is that going to do to the running game? It's going to put the running game in the same position that it is now. Because just because you're a good pass blocking team doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good run blocking team, especially when the offensive coordinator or the offensive philosophy that's coming from Coach Prime is not putting a great emphasis on putting in exotic run blocking schemes. If they're not putting in exotic run blocking schemes and they're just saying, okay, we're going to just run to say we ran, but we're going to pass again. We're just running to pass. No, you have to run. You have to commit to the run to commit to the pass. You have to make the run so believable that you can commit to the pass and offset the defense. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right, thank you guys for listening. The hype train is slowed down. Hopefully they win, but I believe they're going to lose out. Tell me what you guys think and comment below. And I'll read y'all's comments as much as I can. It's not like I have a bunch of comments on my page anyway, so I do have the time to kind of read them. And even when you disagree with me, I don't mind you guys disagreeing. I even heart your message. I've had people say I don't know what the F I'm talking about. That's fine. But just as long as you're not cursing me out. But you can express your opposing views. Even if you curse expressing your opposing views, I don't take it personally. You have a right to express yourself. But when you start to get personal and start to insult people, then that's when it gets kind of like, okay, well, I don't deserve to be cursed out there. But it's okay for you guys to have different opinions. Even if you call me a hater, that's fine. I'll just ask you to basically just find something that I said, and then you can, counter what I said. Pick out the point that doesn't make sense to you. That then, rebut what I said versus just saying, you hating. No, I'm not hating. It's just sad to see a guy, Coach Prime, who had so much potential coming to Colorado, just to diminish it because of pride and ego and his strong affinity towards his son. It clouded his judgment. And putting players and coaches under the bus, you shouldn't do that. Because when you demoted Sean Lewis, you did put him under the bus. If it's true that you demoted him. But if you didn't demote him, then that speaks to a bigger problem, which is what I believe. I believe the latter is true. I believe Coach Lewis demoted himself. He left. He's out of there. He's not coming back there next year. Because he could not incorporate the kind of offense he wanted to run. Because Coach Prime wanted the ball in his son's hands. How do I know? Because of empirical evidence. Even when his son was hurt, like I said before, his son was hurt, game was out of position, you still left your son in the game. You're down in your own territory. Rather than you just running the ball, killing the clock, going to halftime, live to fight another day, you want to throw the ball. Because you believe so much in your son that if the ball is in his hands, he can drive the team down the field. Well, your son's not a superhero. He's a human. And you have other humans that are trying to come at him. The defense is scheming too, Coach Brian. It's not a video game. You can't push the reset button if it doesn't go your way. So every decision you make has to be final. It's like a tattoo. It has to be permanent. You can't say, if it didn't work, let's start the game over so I can do it again. Let's start the game over so I can do it again. It's not a video game. This is real life football. And I believe that Coach Prime his coaching philosophy is horrible. I don't believe he's a good coach. At least what he's showing me now. I don't know what he did at Jackson State. He was able to get good recruits to come there, and his son was there, and there's a different level of competition, but you can't transfer that same dynamic to Power 5 conferences. You actually have to scheme. You have to actually have this. And I don't think Prime is using this to coach his team. He's using this to coach his team. He's using his heart, and the heart can mislead you because the heart is driven by emotion. Too much emotion towards your son is clouding your whole judgment of your whole team, Prime. All right, take care, guys. Until I make another video again. Thank you guys for supporting. Thank you guys for listening. And I'll give you guys another video and give you my thoughts again of what I see. And I have some articles I need to read as well that I'm going to dissect and analyze. All right, thank you guys for watching. All right, bye.